So in 2019, Katy Perry was the reason that I did not make it any further than the original audition on American Idol.
She was a massive pop star for like 15 years or so, but now she's fizzled out.
Oh, it's so sad to go back and look at the actual footage. It's so humiliating. Not only was there a fake door that opened from the inside of the pod, but also Katy Perry, who's on the flight, did this.
Katy Perry is finally making headlines for all the wrong reasons, and I got my popcorn for this one.
The pop industry always had its divas, but even in a world of wild rider demands and private jets, this is something else.
Her last album bombed miserably. She's being fired from Vegas. Nobody wants to watch her Residency. Her tour is bombing. And now she's got some, I think it's a stunt. Her bra popped off on her show, but I don't really care all that much about Katy Perry.
According to a former backup singer, Katy Perry, yes, the same candy-coated teenage dream icon, allegedly enforced a bizarre rule for her team. Every single person in the room was expected to stand up and clap when she entered. Not a polite nod, not a professional hello, a full standing ovation, every time. And if they didn't, word is, it could cost them their job.
Every time she walks into a room, her entire team, crew, everyone who works for her is required to stand up when she walks into a room. I think he said they have to clap too.
Now, we don't know how long this alleged clap or get fired policy was in place, or how many crew members went along with it out of fear rather than admiration, but the implication is crystal clear. Katy wasn't just running a tour, she was running a kingdom, and in her court, you either worship the queen or you're gone. The source said she was so completely out of touch that anyone who dared offer honest feedback was instantly shut down, no criticism allowed. Even when she asked what people thought of her new record, the moment someone replied, "It's different," she allegedly snapped back, "Well, it's not for you," then walked away.
So while I can understand why someone can psychologically become so out of touch, that doesn't make it okay. Not okay!
This wasn't just some salty crew member venting on a podcast. The story is being shared publicly now because former staff feel emboldened, finally free to spill after years of silence, NDAs, and quiet humiliation. And this backup singer wasn't the only one embarrassed to be associated with her. He allegedly refused to even post about the tour on Instagram. Why? Because according to him, the experience was so dysfunctional, so dehumanizing, he didn't want his name anywhere near it. Eventually, he quit altogether. So now the question is, how did we get here? How did Katy Perry, the once beloved queen of radio bangers and bubblegum power, allegedly turn into the kind of boss who needs to be clapped for to feel respected? This isn't just a celebrity on the decline. This sounds like something deeper, something darker.
It was for the first time I actually sensed darkness. I sensed darkness around her.
And once we started digging, we realized this wasn't just about an ego spiral. It was the tip of a toxic iceberg. Once the clap rumors dropped, it didn't take long for more stories to bubble up, and they weren't pretty. Another former team member, who toured as a backup singer for Katy Perry, allegedly described the entire operation as out of touch, chaotic, and deeply insecure. According to him, no one on her team could be honest with her anymore, and if they tried, it didn't go well. Katy didn't want input. She wanted validation. And when that validation wasn't loud enough, when people didn't post about her on social media or pump up her image 24/7, management noticed. He claims he was even approached by Katy's team asking why he hadn't posted photos of himself on tour with her. You'd think being part of a global pop icon's tour would be a bragging right? Apparently not for this guy. His reason: I signed an NDA. Translation? He didn't want to be publicly associated with the show. Didn't want his name linked to what he allegedly described as a train wreck in slow motion. Eventually, he quit the tour, just walked away. But his stories didn't stop there.
And it is surrender to the unknown, trust, and this whole journey is not just about going to space.
Behind the scenes, he claimed Katy's vibe had gone from playful and quirky to controlling and cold. Her entire persona, he said, was borrowed, a Frankenstein of old pop tropes, Bonnie McKee inspiration, and a cringy attempt at staying relevant. And when people didn't clap fast enough, when they gave even the tiniest note of real feedback, the door slammed shut. Katy allegedly refused to hear it, wouldn't even entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, her latest projects weren't connecting. What's wild is that this all tracks with her public trajectory. The forced branding, the awkward performances, the desperate stunts, and all of it seems to come from a place of denial, a refusal to admit that the crown is slipping. But if what former crew members are saying is true, this isn't just a public meltdown. It's an internal collapse, a bubble of yes people, broken communication, and fear-driven silence. And the thing is, this toxic spiral didn't just affect the crew. It also wrecked one young singer's dream, and she's finally ready to talk. For most aspiring artists, standing in front of Katy Perry on American Idol would be a dream come true. For this contestant, it became a nightmare she couldn't shake for 6 years. Her name is Chandler, and in 2019, after being begged by producers to audition for the show, she finally said yes. Not because she needed a break, she was already selling out showcases in Los Angeles and building a fan base, but because Katy had once been her biggest inspiration.
It all started back in 2019. I was approached by some executive producers who came up to me after a sold-out showcase in Los Angeles. Said, "We love you, we want you on our show." And I said, "What show?" And they said, "American Idol."
She'd watched Katy's documentary at 18 and cried, convinced she could follow in her footsteps. What she didn't expect was that the same woman who inspired her would be the one to absolutely crush her spirit. The moment Chandler stepped into the room, Katy allegedly stared her down with what she later described as darkness.
So in 2019, Katy Perry was the reason that I did not make it any further than the original audition on American Idol. And I've been trying to understand it ever since. It wasn't getting kicked off the show by my idol and the person that I really wanted to be like and wanted to always meet that haunted me.
Lionel Richie and Luke Bryan sat there too, but they didn't say a word, not until Katy gave the signal. According to Chandler, it was clear Katy held all the power, and what came next only proved it. After one word, Jazzy, Katy dismissed her. Said she didn't have the voice for a singing competition. No warmth, no encouragement, just a cold, dismissive no, and then silence. What made it worse? Chandler had been forced to perform a song she hadn't chosen. Idol producers had handpicked one from her catalog, ignoring her instincts, ignoring her artistry. And to top it all off, her call time was 5 a.m., but she didn't perform until 8 p.m. No food, no water, no sunlight, no pay. She sat there, trapped in a building all day, nervous and dehydrated, all because Katy showed up late.
And then I also had two friends that were employees of the show. They were production assistants, and they said, "Dude, Chandler, we wanted to wait till after your audition was done to tell you this, but Katy Perry is the worst."
After the rejection, a camera was allegedly shoved in her face to capture the aftermath. Tears, confusion, humiliation. And for Chandler, it wasn't just a lost audition. It was a betrayal by someone she'd once idolized. For years, she questioned what went wrong. Why did Katy seem to enjoy rejecting her? Why did the entire experience feel so cruel? But it wasn't until 2025 that she realized she wasn't alone, that the cracks weren't just in her memory, they were everywhere. And the more she shared, the more former insiders started to whisper, Katy Perry isn't just falling off. She's been like this for a while.
She went to Vegas, she went to space, she came back from space, she wants to go back to Vegas, but it's too late. It was my understanding that when you do the whole Vegas show thing, you're supposed to make Vegas like the last stop on the train, you know? Her tour is flopping.
The more Chandler shared about her experience on American Idol, the clearer the picture became, and it wasn't pretty. This wasn't just a bad day or an unfortunate rejection. It was the unraveling of a system designed to manufacture heartbreak for the sake of primetime entertainment. But what really struck a nerve was just how much power Katy Perry allegedly wielded behind the scenes. According to Chandler, it was Katy, not Lionel, not Luke, who made the final call. The other judges apparently waited to see what Katy said before offering their own opinions. It wasn't a panel, it was a one-woman court, and if Katy didn't like you, your dream died on the spot. But the dysfunction didn't stop there. The production schedule was a mess. Chandler claims she arrived before sunrise and wasn't seen until long after dark, kept in a holding pattern without food or water, unable to leave the building, all while being prepped to perform on command. The reason for the delay? Katy allegedly showed up late, and not just fashionably late, hours late.
She's awful. She's mean. She was late that day. Okay, another thing is I arrived at 5 a.m. My call time was 5 a.m. and I didn't audition till 8 p.m. that night. And again, they don't provide food. I don't even think they provided water.
Chandler says the call times were built around Katy's schedule, not the contestants'. So while hopefuls sat in fluorescent hallways, starving and exhausted, Katy arrived, when she pleased and still held all the cards. And here's the kicker. Chandler wasn't the only one noticing the imbalance. Two production assistants, friends of hers at the time, pulled her aside after her audition and allegedly told her straight up, Katy Perry is the worst. They claimed she was rude to staff, dismissive, and constantly surrounded by chaos. One even hinted that she thrived on the control. She wasn't just the face of Idol, she was the gatekeeper. And if she didn't like your energy, your tone, or your outfit, you were out. It paints a disturbing picture, one where dreams are dangled like bait, only to be snatched away for reality TV drama. One where a global pop star allegedly uses her influence not to elevate new talent, but to command the spotlight and punish those who don't fall in line. And while most viewers never see this part of the machine, the cracks were always there. They're just finally starting to show. If Katy Perry's backstage reputation was starting to unravel, her public image wasn't far behind.
One other little thing that Katy Perry did, she promoted her tour. Oh boy. It really makes you wonder here. Was that just what all of this was about?
What used to be quirky and endearing has, in recent years, veered into the downright cringeworthy. And nowhere was that shift more obvious than in the release of Women's World, a music video that felt like a desperate throwback to a version of feminism no one asked for. Katy strutted around dressed as Rosie the Riveter, doused in pastel filters, flanked by dancing men doing exaggerated pelvic thrusts. There was no clear message, just chaotic, try-hard visuals that had fans scratching their heads and critics sharpening their knives. Commenters didn't hold back. One review said she'd been teasing, or perhaps threatening, the general public with her single for weeks. Another flat out declared the entire thing felt forced, packed with empty gestures like random shots of two men kissing for no reason, as if someone fed ChatGPT a 2010 BuzzFeed article and called it a concept. For longtime fans, it was devastating. Katy once ruled the charts with effortless bangers like Teenage Dream and Firework. Now, she was delivering what many called woke pop cosplay, and the audience wasn't buying it. Even more damning, the numbers. Women's World has barely crossed 20 million views after nearly a year. That might seem decent until you remember that this is the same woman who once had 8 songs with over 1 billion views. Tracks like Roar, Dark Horse, and Last Friday Night were cultural moments. Now her new singles are buried on her own channel, almost like she's hiding them. Fans scrolling her popular uploads won't even find Women's World unless they dig. Insiders say this isn't just a creative misfire, it's a pattern. Allegedly, Katy has ignored honest feedback from her team for years.
But also Katy Perry, who's on the flight, did this.
Katy!
One former employee even claimed she stole much of her visual style and songwriting energy from Bonnie McKee, the ghost behind the glam. But now, without McKee, without a pulse on the culture, and without a generation of fans still clapping, Katy's trying to recreate magic with nothing but glitter and denial, and just when it seemed like her fall couldn't get more surreal, she reached for something outrageous. She went to space, or at least pretended to. There was a time when Katy Perry could drop into a stage wearing a cupcake bra and the world would cheer. But in 2024, she tried something bigger, bolder, more galactic. She boarded a Blue Origin rocket. Yes, Jeff Bezos' infamous phallic spaceship for a historic all-women spaceflight that was supposed to inspire a generation. But what unfolded looked less like a triumph of female empowerment and more like a parody. Critics and fans alike were left asking the same thing. Was this a mission to space? Or just a floating selfie shoot designed to save a failing tour? The optics were brutal. Instead of leading a crew of astronauts, Katy floated for 3 minutes, took promo pics in zero gravity, and recreated her own album cover while dramatically staring into the camera. She promoted her Lifetimes tour from the capsule. She kissed the ground after landing. She gave interviews about the spiritual journey, and somehow none of it felt real. The backlash was immediate. Social media users accused her of using a multi-million-dollar spaceflight as a PR stunt, a last-ditch attempt to inject relevance into a dying career.
Up there with all the,
What training
different
did you have to do?
tools that I've learned in my life from it.
Let's go ahead and watch all the tools that Katy Perry used while she was up on her mission as she flew an astronaut crew.
And it backfired, hard. Instead of boosting ticket sales, the tour rollout tanked. Critics panned the opening shows as lazy, half-baked, and rehearsal quality. Whole sections of stadiums appeared empty. Sources claimed her team was blocking off rows and manually upgrading seats just to hide how bad sales really were. She'd left Earth to elevate her brand, but returned to an even more devastating truth. The audience wasn't waiting. Even worse, the space trip itself was ridiculed as a glorified amusement ride. Experts noted that the capsule didn't even reach full orbit, meaning Katy technically never left the Earth's atmosphere. She floated for minutes, not hours, and had no control over the ship. It was all pre-programmed. The crew weren't astronauts. They were passengers, luggage with lipstick, And people noticed. They noticed the photo ops. They noticed the forced inspiration speeches. They noticed the fakeness. So if the goal was to look powerful, transcendent, unstoppable, the result was the opposite. Katy Perry didn't ascend to the stars. She crash-landed into the cultural void, exposed, out of touch, and mocked by the very public she hoped to impress. Vegas was supposed to be the victory lap, the final jewel in Katy Perry's crown, a luxurious residency at Resorts World, paying her up to $900,000 per show, backed by a bidding war between top-tier hotels. It had all the makings of a glittering comeback, but behind the flashing lights and oversized props, something was rotting. According to sources close to the venue, the entire thing turned out to be a disaster, not just underwhelming, financially devastating. And now, Resorts World reportedly wants nothing to do with her ever again. The numbers didn't lie. For all the spectacle, the cartoonish set pieces, giant toilet stages, and neon-fueled nostalgia, the show just didn't sell. The hotel allegedly lost more money than it made during the run. One insider told News Nation, the Residency was a complete failure, and despite the initial buzz, Katy's ticket sales never met expectations.
We haven't seen it. I want to see it myself.
Wow.
1, 2, 3, take a space!
Okay. So, what did they do exactly? Well, Katy Perry did this, which is a remake of her album cover.
The production was expensive. The costumes, the crew, the LED overload, it all added up. But the people? They didn't show up. What's worse, this wasn't just a case of overestimating a celebrity's draw. It was a loud alarm bell for the industry. Katy Perry, once a pop juggernaut who could fill stadiums in seconds, was now struggling to pack a Vegas showroom. Entire nights were allegedly comped out. Hotel guests got free tickets just to fill seats. Reviews were mixed at best, with critics calling the performance over-rehearsed and under-inspired. One viral tweet put it bluntly, "It's like watching a cartoon character have a midlife crisis in real time." There were whispers that the resort felt duped. Caesar's Palace, which lost the original bidding war, reportedly ended up laughing last. Resorts World had poured millions into a residency that couldn't even break even. And with Katy reportedly requesting total creative control, any changes to fix the show weren't in the cards. Once the final performance wrapped, the message was clear. There would be no renewal. Katy Perry wasn't coming back. Not by their invitation anyway. So what happens when Vegas drops you? When the city of second acts says, no thanks? For most stars, that's the end. But for Katy, it somehow got worse. Her nationwide tour was next, and it was about to become her most humiliating failure yet. They tried everything. Flashy trailers, viral promos, surprise social media drops, even the infamous space stunt. But none of it could hide what was happening in real time. Katy Perry's tour was tanking, and it wasn't just a few bad nights. It was a pattern. Stadium after stadium, night after night. The pictures told the story. Thousands of empty seats, whole sections roped off, and frantic upgrades at the door just to make venues look less deserted. In cities like Atlanta and Baltimore, maps of available tickets showed seas of blue, rows upon rows of unsold seats. It got so bad that some venues were allegedly closing entire upper decks and shuffling fans down to the front, just to give the illusion of a crowd. But the truth kept slipping through. Fans posted footage of eerily quiet arenas. Critics began whispering about papered audiences, a term used when tickets are given away for free just to fill space. One insider called it tour arbitrage, where even decent sales couldn't match the massive expenses. In other words, it was a loss leader. A show meant to save face, not make money. And the show itself, that only fueled the fire.
Tell me everything you know because I already met her and she's horrible. And he's like, dude, she is completely out of touch. No one's honest with her on her team, and the people who try to be honest with her, she rejects. Her whole persona was stolen from Bonnie McKee.
Reports described the performances as strange, unfinished, and at times, deeply unserious. Choreography that looked like rehearsals. Staging that felt like parody. Wardrobe malfunctions that some speculated were planned just to spark headlines. And then, of course, there was Women's World, the awkward feminist anthem that became more of a meme than a moment. Fans didn't just skip the shows, they mocked them. Online threads turned her set list into punchlines. Her outfits were compared to space cosplay. One viral clip showed her eye glitching mid-performance, fueling bizarre theories and brutal memes. It wasn't just a flop, it was public unraveling, one venue at a time. But here's the thing, Katy wasn't alone in this crash. Some of the biggest pop stars of the last 2 decades were quietly facing the same crisis. Stadiums that once sold out in minutes were now offering tickets for $20. And people started asking, is this just a Katy Perry problem, or a sign that the pop era we grew up on is officially over? At first, it seemed like Katy Perry was just having a rough Patch. A couple of flops, a weird fashion era, maybe a little out of step with the times. But the deeper you look, the clearer it gets. This isn't just about her. This is about the collapse of an entire system, a music industry built on megastars, tightly controlled marketing, and a generation of fans who once lined up for CDs. That world, it's vanishing. And Katy's implosion might be the most dramatic example of a much bigger shift. Let's talk numbers. Gen Alpha, the youngest generation right now, is shockingly small compared to millennials and Gen Z, only around 40 million strong in the US, versus the 80 million plus who once idolized pop queens like Katy. And those millennials, they're not exactly spending their nights screaming lyrics at stadiums anymore. They're older, they're tired, they've got student debt, kids, or both. And the Gen Z crowd, they're not buying tickets to see legacy stars, they're on TikTok discovering new artists every 3 seconds. The pop monoculture is dead, and when younger stars do break through, think Sabrina Carpenter, Olivia Rodrigo, they're doing arenas, not stadiums. Smart, strategic, sized for the moment. Katy? She's still trying to fill venues built for Beyoncé and Taylor Swift at their peaks. But those peaks are rare now. The middle's gone. You're either a once-in-a-generation phenomenon, or you're fighting for scraps in an attention economy that doesn't care who you were in 2010. There's also the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. People don't want to see old pop stars unless it's nostalgic. And nostalgia only works if you stick the landing. Katy tried to reinvent herself. Rosie the Riveter, space adventurer, glitchy cyborg, but none of it resonated because no one knows what she stands for anymore. And worse, they don't care enough to figure it out. Even Beyoncé allegedly struggled to sell out certain venues. Rumors swirled about $20 ticket nights. Fans didn't rush. They waited for discounts. This isn't just a Katy problem, it's a pop star extinction event. The audience has moved on, the culture has shifted, and for those who can't adapt or refuse to believe it's happening, the fall from grace is swift, public, and brutal. The irony is hard to ignore. Katy Perry once sang that karma's a bleep and that she keeps receipts. But in 2025, it feels like the receipts are being handed to her. Tour cancellations, empty seats, ex-staff speaking out, former fans telling their horror stories. The culture that once crowned her is now seemingly erasing her in real time. And if there's one thing everyone's quietly asking, it's this. How did it all fall apart so fast? Maybe it wasn't fast. Maybe it was happening all along and the machine just kept spinning loud enough to distract us. The over-the-top visuals, the big-budget videos, the celebrity brand deals, all of it hid the truth. That behind the glitter and the wigs, there was a growing disconnect between Katy and her team, between Katy and her audience, between Katy and reality. And now that disconnect is catching up. When your staff allegedly has to clap every time you walk into a room just to protect their job, something is deeply broken. When you float in a spaceship to promote a tour no one's buying tickets to, the desperation starts to show. And when former contestants say they felt darkness in your presence, not inspiration, that's not just bad PR. That's a legacy cracking at the foundation. But it's also bigger than Katy. This feels like the moment where the culture finally turned, where curated celebrity worship, industry gatekeeping, and overly polished personas stopped being aspirational and started feeling ridiculous. People want authenticity now. They want artists who are grounded, vulnerable, unpredictable, not holograms in spacesuits singing pre-programmed anthems about empowerment no one asked for. So what happens next? Does Katy Perry retreat into silence? Reinvent herself for the 5th time? Or does she double down, strap on another LED bra, and keep spinning under the spotlight? Whatever she chooses, one thing is clear. The public isn't clapping anymore, no matter how loud her team begs them to. So here's the question for you. Do you think Katy's career can still be saved? Or has the curtain officially closed on pop's most theatrical princess? Let us know in the comments, then like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because the next video on your screen is waiting, and trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.